February 23, 2022. A cold, quiet night across Ukraine. Children slept. Couples scrolled through their phones. Trains ran on schedule. Markets were open. But above them, in Belarus, Crimea, and along Russia's borders, the world's largest military buildup in post-Soviet history was nearly complete. Over 190,000 Russian troops were now staged around Ukraine: tank columns, missile batteries, fighter jets, naval forces. The world watched, anxious. Western intelligence warned invasion was imminent. February 24, 2022. 4:55 a.m. Moscow. Russian state television interrupted its programming. The screen faded to black. Then, the familiar figure appeared. Vladimir Putin sat at a polished wooden desk in Kremlin, the double-headed eagle behind him, the Russian tricolor to his left. In a pre-recorded address, Putin announced the start of a special military operation in Ukraine. His words were measured but loaded. Ukraine was run by neo-Nazis, accused Kyiv of genocide in the Donbas, and declared that Russia had no choice but to act. He invoked history of Tsarist empires, of Soviet sacrifice, and made clear this was not just a border skirmish. This was a war of restoration. Then came the threat heard around the world. Whoever tries to interfere must know that Russia's response will be immediate and will lead to consequences you have never faced in your history. A veiled nuclear warning, directed squarely at NATO. Less than 10 minutes later, the first cruise missiles crossed the Ukrainian sky. At exactly 5 a.m., February 24, 2022, Kyiv awoke to war. The first explosions were distant, then closer, then deafening. Caliber cruise missiles launched from Russian warships in the Black Sea. Iskander ballistic missiles fired from Belarus and western Russia. In the span of minutes, dozens of strikes rained down on key Ukrainian targets. Kyiv, Kharkiv, Odessa, Dnipro, Mariupol, cities lit by flames and flash. Air defense systems scrambled to intercept. Some missiles were shot down. Others hit their mark: radar stations, military warehouses, air bases, and command bunkers. But civilians were not spared. In Kyiv, the ground shook. Glass shattered in apartment buildings. A missile struck near Borispil International Airport, sending smoke plumes into the breaking dawn. Mothers grabbed children. Fathers ran for basements. Dogs barked as sirens screamed, a sound not heard in this city since the Second World War. Phone lines jammed. Gas stations flooded with cars. Across the country, people asked the same question: is this really happening? At 8 a.m., a fleet of over 30 Russian Mi-8 and Ka-52 helicopters stormed across the Dnieper River, flying low and fast toward Hostomel Airport, just northwest of Kyiv. Their objective: secure the runway, establish an air bridge, and fly in thousands of troops to encircle the capital within hours. This was to be the lightning strike, Russia's path to a quick decapitation. But Ukraine was ready. As the choppers approached, Stinger missiles from Ukrainian mobile teams struck down several, sending fireballs into nearby fields. Paratroopers landed under fire. Within minutes, a close-quarters firefight broke out inside the airport perimeter. Ukrainian Alpha Group Special Forces, reinforced by National Guard and mechanized infantry, engaged the VDV in brutal gun battles across hangars and air traffic towers. Runways were cratered by artillery to prevent landings. By dusk, Russian reinforcements still hadn't arrived. Ukraine had held Hostomel for now. The Blitz was bleeding. While Hostomel burned, another threat surged from the north. At daybreak, Russian armored columns thundered across the border from Belarus, pushing down highways toward Chernihiv and Kyiv. Spearheaded by T-72 tanks, BTRs, and Iskander missile systems, this was the northern prong of the invasion, designed to break the Ukrainian capital within 48 hours. Russian drones scouted ahead. Artillery cleared roads. Belarusian airfields provided full logistical support. But Ukrainian engineers had sabotaged key bridges. Anti-tank squads waited in tree lanes, and local defenders, some in uniform, some in jeans, were armed with laws, javelins, and raw defiance. Fierce ambushes erupted along the E95 highway. Entire convoys were lost in mud and fire. Ukrainian forces blew culverts and bridges to choke supply lines. Meanwhile, inside Kyiv, fear turned to resolve. Civilians flooded territorial defense centers. Teachers, IT workers, taxi drivers queued for Kalashnikovs. Molotov cocktails were mixed in school gymnasiums. The capital was not evacuating. It was preparing to fight. Russian tanks rolled into the northern outskirts of Kyiv, Ukraine's second-largest city, just 40 kilometers from the Russian border. Kyiv had long been seen by the Kremlin as sympathetic, Russian-speaking, and vulnerable. Moscow believed it would welcome the invaders. That illusion shattered within minutes. As Russian armored personnel carriers entered the city center, Ukrainian territorial defense fighters opened fire from alleyways and rooftops. Civilians hurled Molotov cocktails from apartment blocks. A convoy of Russian BMDs was set ablaze by a single man with a javelin. In Saltivka, SBU operatives detonated charges beneath a bridge, halting an entire mechanized column. By nightfall, urban combat raged across multiple districts. Russian troops took government buildings briefly, only to be driven out by counterattacks. Missiles struck civilian apartments. Firefighters dragged children from rubble. But the flag over City Hall remained Ukrainian. Kyiv, once seen as easy prey, had become a fortress. And the world was watching. As the sun rose fully over Eastern Europe, the scale of Russia's invasion was undeniable. For separate thrusts had been launched from Crimea in the south, from Donbas in the east, from Belarus in the north, and from Russia's Belgorod region in the northeast. This was not a show of force. It was a full-scale war. Ukrainian air bases were burning. Dozens of towns were under artillery fire. Russian tanks poured through breach points. Precision strikes took out early radar warning systems. Electronic warfare disabled communications. By military math, Ukraine should have crumbled in days, but it didn't. Instead, the world watched something no satellite could predict: a nation fighting back. In Kyiv, civilians queued outside enlistment offices. University students, doctors, engineers, taxi drivers, all signing up for the territorial defense forces. In every town, Molotov cocktails were mixed in bathtubs. Sandbags blocked roads. Tractor drivers hauled away abandoned tanks. City buses turned into barricades. Even social media became a weapon. Civilians used Telegram and Signal to track enemy convoys, mark landing zones, and relay coordinates to the army. TikTok videos captured tank movements before satellites could. President Volodymyr Zelensky, standing defiant in central Kyiv, refused evacuation. His message was simple: I need ammunition, not a ride. The world, once skeptical of Ukraine's chances, now looked on with awe. What was supposed to be a lightning decapitation had become a war of resistance. The easy win had turned into Russia's nightmare. February 24th was not just an invasion. It was the day Europe's post-Cold War order shattered. The first 24 hours had ended. The war had just begun. But this was only the first day. What came next would test the soul of a nation. The battle for Kyiv begins in the next episode.